Okay, hello everyone. Good afternoon and welcome to our webinar with the title Unlocking Business Intelligence with AI-Powered Automation. So my name is Msasia Shejo and I'm so excited to be your host and MC for today's session, which is brought to you by Adept Solutions. So before we dive into our exciting agenda, I just want to mention some few housekeeping guidelines. Please ensure your microphones are muted during the presentation to avoid background noise. Feel free to use the chat function for any questions or comments. So we're going to have a Q&A session at the end. For our Q&A, we are going to use that tab at the top there. Next to the chat icon, maybe let me just, I'm not able to share my screen because Tendai is sharing his screen. So at the top, next to the chat, okay, thank you, Tendai. So I will share my screen so that I can show you where you can type in your questions during the webinar. Can you please just send a thumbs up if you're able to see my screen? Anyone who is able to see my screen? Okay, thank you so much. So, okay, so I want you to use this Q&A tab here on the top part of the screen. That's what you'll be using for the Q&A. We're going to have our Q&A session at the end of the webinar. So please make use of that tab. Okay. And then another housekeeping guideline. Please be reminded that this session will be recorded and then these recordings will be shared to you after the webinar. Okay, so maybe before we start our webinar, I would like to introduce to you who is Adept Solutions. Okay, so Adept Solutions is it stands as a mouth-first IT service provider in Zimbabwe. It offers a blend of training certification, licensing, consultancy, and strategic innovation. Its extensive partner network and commitment to addressing local business challenges position them as a pivotal layer or player in driving digital transformation across various sectors. So as Adept Solutions, we have our vision, and our vision is to provide practical and innovative IT solutions. And our mission is also to empower people or to empower you to succeed through innovative IT solutions. Okay, so as Adept Solutions, we offer quite a number of services, which include training services, testing services, licensing services, and consulting services. Okay. Today we're going to be focusing on how automation and AI are transforming business intelligence. You're going to learn how we are going to learn about practical use cases, implementation strategies, and how to maximize the potential of AI-driven automation within your business processes. Okay, and then we're going to continue with our webinar tomorrow. In case you might want to join us again, tomorrow we're going to start at 9 up to 10:30. Okay, so tomorrow we're going to continue the conversation, but we're going to be focusing specifically on Power BI and how its features integrate with AI-driven automation for enhanced business insights. So for today, we'll be focusing mainly about what AI-powered automation, okay? So without wasting much of your time, I would like to introduce to you our speaker for today. It is my pleasure to introduce our esteemed speaker for today, who is none other than Tendai Neta, who is an expert in AI-powered automation and business intelligence, and has been instrumental in guiding organizations through their digital transformation journeys. We are truly honored to have Tendai Neta share their insights and expertise with us today. Okay, so Tendai, I'm going to hand over to you. You can start your presentation. Thank you so much. Please enjoy the webinar. And please don't forget to put all your questions, your suggestions on the Q&A tab on top of your screen there. Thank you so much. Enjoy.
All right, thank you very much, Musa. Good afternoon to everyone. I do apologize. I do have a little bit of a flu, but I'm going to sound a little bit throaty. But whenever I do want to cough, I'm going to mute myself so that I take that disgusting sound away from you guys. I hope everyone can hear me clearly. If you could just raise your hand to let me know that the sound is getting to you loud and clear. Right. All right. Beautiful. Beautiful. So I see a few hands raised. That is great. That is great. Um, okay. So, um, good afternoon. All right. This is a beautiful Friday session. We don't have a lot of time together, but I'm going to try my best to give you the essential skills that would introduce you to this topic or to this business application that Microsoft has. And then on top of that, you can build on those skills, and you can go even further. So when we're talking about Microsoft Power Automate, look, for me, right, today we're going to be diving into sort of like just the surface level of what Microsoft Power Automate is. So Microsoft Power Automate is Microsoft's automation engine. And by automation engine, it helps you to say sort of goodbye to repetitive tasks, right? So if you've ever had a moment where you are entering data into an Excel file and you're just thinking yourself, okay, this is repetitive. I'm doing the same thing over and over again. Or when you're sending email, my marketing teams, I know you guys have had these problems before, right? You've got a mass group of people who you'd like to send emails to, right? Then you have to sit down and you're repeating over and over again, sending emails one by one, right? So that's where Microsoft comes in. It helps you solve those repetitive tasks, right? If you have any approval delays, right? Maybe you want to, maybe you have requested you have requested next week off, and you'd like a day off during the week, and then just because the requisition, yeah, or the days off to be asked have to pass through multiple channels of people that need to sign it, and maybe one person is not at work, that means Kuti, you can't get such signature, you can't go for holiday. So we also talk about my approval delays. It also solves that issue, right? You can start to have people assigning, confirming approvals online. It doesn't mean you have to be at work at the HQ for you to approve a set number of holidays, approve money to be used, and things like that. And also look at missed updates, right? And hello to a more time, faster workflows, and sharper productivity. Right? With missed updates, I know we have those moments where something is said in the organization, and then you're working on this project, and different teams are doing different things that you all need to come back together. Sometimes you miss the communication that happens, right? And that can happen. You can have miscommunication, and then at the end of it, you look back and like, what? Oh my word! How did we miss this? Why weren't you communicating and things like that? So it's also Power Automate is another way you can solve those issues. So look, whether you're an IT admin, maybe you're a trainer, maybe you're a teacher, or maybe you're in finance, or you're just trying to get more done with the less amount of time that we have. This is your automation power up, right? So if you ever thought, oh my word, there has to be a better way we can do this, right? Now I've got good news for you today. There is absolutely a better way to do this. So we're going to explore that together. Right. Now, let's talk about something that's really at the heart of Microsoft Power Automate. Right. And in there, what they have and or their vision, the overall vision that's driving what this tool is the idea of a citizen developer. Now, before if you wanted to become a developer, right, you have to get science degrees, you have to practice coding, learn a different language, and things like that. Now, a citizen developer doesn't have to do that, right? A citizen developer is someone without isn't someone with a computer science degree or maybe someone with years of coding experience. A citizen developer, it's someone like you, right? And it's someone like me as well. For me, I'll raise my hand. I absolutely hate writing pieces of code. I hate it. It's annoying. I just don't find joy in it, right? But because of the rise of because of this idea of citizen developer that Microsoft is trying to bring in, it means even I, a person who hates looking at code, who hates writing code, I can sit there and begin to write programs myself. Right. So it's someone like you, right? It's someone like you and me, frontline workers, admin staff, trainers, analysts. Look, anyone who sees a repetitive task or a broken process and says, look, there has to be a better way for us to do this, they're a citizen developer. So with tools like Power Automate, right, you don't need to know how to code. Trust me, you don't even need to know a single thing about coding. You just need to understand your workflow, right? I remember back in the day where these things called flow diagrams, right? That's essentially where we're going to be working with. We're going to be working at a very high level. So Microsoft has designed this so that the people who live the processes can also improve them quickly and confidently. I see right now the future of work changing because of because of these job disrupting technologies that have been introduced, like artificial intelligence, cloud computing, and big data. I see organizations moving away sort of from wanting their normal workday stuff. Even if you're fine, even if you're an accountant, even if you're an admin, I see them wanting them for you to also know and understand how to code. Right? So this is where it comes in, right? Imagine you're working in a very big organization. And for me, I know for sure working in the tech department at Adept Solutions is we've got a mountain this high full of work, right? But if you're a citizen developer, you don't have to go to the tech department, right? You can just create the program yourself, right? That shift is powerful. It means innovation doesn't only come from IT, right? It starts to come from everyone in the organization. And if you are an employee who has that skill in comparison to someone who doesn't, it becomes very hard for them to make you redundant or to get rid of you. So innovation doesn't only come from IT, right? It can come from everyone. And Power Automate is turning employees into problem solvers and empowering the whole organization to work smarter. Right? All right, so I'm Tendai Neta. I will be your instructor today. I'm going to take you through some Power Automate flows. We're going to sit together, troubleshoot some things, write some flow diagrams, try to make them work so that I can show you and give you a full appreciation of the technologies that we're going to talk about. If you have any questions, if you would like to get in contact with me, that is, you can scan that QR code. I'll also show this QR code at the end of the session. But that is your gateway to me. All right. So in terms of the main four objectives I have for this lesson is, firstly, I want you guys to do automated data collection, right? Saving attachments into SharePoint, editing Excel files, saving new email attachments to a OneDrive or to Dropbox or to Google Drive, right? Uploading photos to OneDrive for business, right? Those things are the things we're going to be talking about, automated data collection. And I know one isn't here, but when people fill out a survey or Microsoft Forms, because we use Microsoft predominantly. If people fill out a Microsoft form, right, we want to save that information into an Excel file, and then maybe further on we want to send customized emails and things like that. So that's where we're talking about automated data collection. And secondly, I want to boost your personal productivity, right? Things like creating reminders, blocking calendar time, saving messages to OneNote, right? We're going to talk about what ways can you, what can Power Automate do for you to make your job easier, right? Instead of, I know for our organization we have to write daily reports every day, right? But now I no longer have to sit down and spend, because we finish work at 4:30, right? So usually at 4:30 people are writing the daily work report to send to their respective manager, right? But I don't really have to do that, right? When people are sitting down, I'm already out of the door, right? Because I've been able to implement some automation in some of my work. And then thirdly, keeping informed of changes, right? I want to make sure that if anything is happening in your organization, that you know about it, right? There is nothing more annoying than having shadow workers or shadow IT or shadow processes, that things that just happen in the background and then you just see the end result of it, right? Because it all works out when everything is fine. You know, when things go wrong and you're trying to track back what happened, why did this happen, it can become an issue. And then the last objective that I want to achieve with this session is getting approvals in SharePoint. Right? This is a really, really big one. Every time we go to organizations, talking to them about, look, we've got solutions we can pitch to you, proof of concepts we can write for you. Every time they're always like, oh, what about the SharePoint or automation workflow? And for me, it becomes tough to sell that because sure, it's very easy, right? And I can't sit there and pretend like I'm going to be doing 20 hours of work when essentially I'm just going to be sitting there for a few minutes, right? So I want to empower you guys to be able to do this as well. Okay, so that is our agenda for today. We'll start off with a brief introduction so you know some terms of the things that we're going to be using. Please note, I am not going to cover everything in this session. Unfortunately, it's just very short. I wish I had more time with you, but you can get in touch with us and we can arrange us to create, to get you maybe the certification if you want to have the Power Automate certificate. So I'm just going to cover the basics and the essentials. And then we're talking about automate data collection, right? Keeping informed of changes and getting approvals. Right. So when we're talking about automating data collection, right, we're gathering information from forms, surveys, emails, or systems, right, and then we store that information maybe in a central location like Excel, SharePoint, or even a database, right, and that saves our time, right? It reduces our errors and ensures that we have consistent records throughout. So in terms of the flow diagram itself, this is sort of like the steps that I'm going to take to sort of achieve almost all the flow diagrams that I'm going to make. Right? Of course, this one is specifically for data collection, but it's very much the same, right? First, you need to set up the data collection in Excel, right? So this specifically is for if you want to be collecting data, right? You need to first set up the Excel sheet. So we'll go through that as well, right? And then step 2 is your trigger, right? And I'll talk about what triggers are. And then step 3 is your action, and then step 4 is your action 2. Of course, this is usually trigger is what you need, your action, and of course your data set. That is the beginning. So before we jump into building our first flow, let's just quickly go over the basic essentials you need to understand Power Automate. So first, think of Power Automate as your digital assistant, right? It follows your instructions to automate tasks, and those instructions or these instructions are what we call flows. Right, so all these things that for moving from step 1 from a trigger to an action action number 2, and mapping answer to columns, those are all flows. So every flow, of course, starts off with a trigger, right? So something that starts the automation. That's all that it is, right? So it could be receiving an email. Maybe I receive an email. Maybe I create a flow that says, look, I want you to check for all emails that have the subject heading inquiry. Right, that is the trigger, right? Anytime an email comes in that has the subject heading inquiry, I want you to reply to that message by giving this prompt or whatever it may be. right? So that is the trigger, right? So it could be uploading a file, maybe submitting a form. Those are what we call our triggers, right? And then comes the actions, right? So the actions, these are the steps the flow takes after the trigger itself, right? So sending an email, right? Saving a file, updating SharePoint, or posting a message into Teams, right? Those are things that come after the trigger has happened. So you can never start with an action, right? You always start with triggers, and then you go to actions. Then after that, you also work with connectors. Now, connectors, these are like bridges to apps and services like Outlook, OneDrive, and so forth. So you will notice, because I am talking about Microsoft Power Automate, there is a lot more connectors that follow the Microsoft suite, right? So I'm talking about your SharePoints, your Excels, your OneDrives, your Outlooks, and so forth. But they also have other connectors. Like if you use Salesforce as your ERP system, you can use Salesforce, right? If you use things like Odoo, right? I'm pretty sure there's an Odoo connector in there as well. If you use things like Twitter, maybe you want to be looking for tweet threads about a certain hashtag, right? If a certain hashtag gets posted, I want you to trigger this automation flow, right? That is also available to you. Google Drive, so even third-party tools like Twitter or Google Drive are there, and Microsoft is working tirelessly to add more of these connectors so that it makes their app, so that it makes their Power Automate or their business application more useful. So there are three main flow types that you should know. And the first one that we have is what we call an automated flow. So automated flows run when something happens, right? Things like when an email arrives, right? Or you can have instant cloud flows, right? So with instant cloud flows, they get triggered manually by either pressing a button or a shortcut. So you can there's even Microsoft Power Automate for mobile, where you can trigger some of these flows via your mobile phone, right? Scheduled flows. Now, scheduled flows are flows that run at a certain time, right? Every day at 9 a.m. Right? So my daily report runs every day at 5 p.m. Right? Every day at 5 p.m. Make sure that I have covered up anything maybe that I haven't done when the 4:30 end of workday has happened. If I have any other tasks that I want to add in there that I forgot about, I can add them. And then at 5 p.m. every day, it grabs all the tasks that I've completed and puts them into a nice email and sends them to my manager. Right? A few good practices to keep in mind, though, right? Always name your flows clearly. It's very sometimes it can get very confusing, right? So it's just like following best practices for developers. Right? Developers need to make sure that they have the correct and the right naming convention for their files. It's the same thing with Microsoft Power Automate. Make sure that you're naming your flows correctly. Then use comments or descriptions in complex flows, right? Things that may be stretching and maybe that are using for loops and all these other if you have anything that's complex that you think may be hard for you to remember, when you visit it again, right, use some descriptions and then test your flow before you go live, right? Always make sure that you test your flow before you just release it, right? It can, again, since this is Power Automate, it can absolutely and will absolutely spam controls or spam things if you're not looking over that correctly. So if you understand triggers, right, you understand actions, you understand what connectors are, I have got good news for you. You're ready and you're well on your way, right? So the rest is just creativity and problem solving, right? So that's now what we're going to get into, right? We're going to uh, jump right in and start creating some flows. Okay, so I'm going to just check and make sure that. Right. So for in terms of this is what your environment would look like, right? When you go home, this is where you'd get. So then the create tab, of course, is where you'd create your flow. Then you've got your templates. Then you've got your learn. Your learn has got some extra learning materials that you may want. right? And then you've got your approval section, right? And then you've also got your solutions section. You also have your process mining, your AI hub, automation center, desktop flow activity. So I'm going to let you guys, everything from the line below, I'm going to let you guys figure out on your own. I'm going to mainly focus on the things that are up here. Okay, so we're going to jump straight in. So what are we going to build? I'm going to build a flow that essentially collects information that has been received from attendees. Sorry, a form that has been filled out by attendees, and then it logs that information into an Excel file. Then, if we have time, if I can cover this quickly enough, then we can go over other things like actually sending a customized email and things like that. Okay, so what you're going to need as a prerequisite, you're going to need access to Microsoft Forms. So I'm going to, sorry, the full screen doesn't allow me to, I can move this a bit somewhere, down over here. Okay, so we're going to go to Forms. We're going to access Microsoft Forms. Okay, all right, and then we're also going to need Microsoft Excel. So I prefer to use the desktop version of Microsoft Excel. So it up. Okay, and then sorry, let me just mute that a bit of feedback. Okay, and then what we're now going to do is, sorry, let me just close that one. So this is a different form. So we're going to go right ahead and create our form. So I am trying to access forms. There we go. Okay, so let's just create one from our templates, right? So that we don't waste a lot of time. Maybe let's just say it's a normal registration form, right? So it's a normal registration form. So we can choose here, do we want an event registration, attendee confirmation? Let's just say we want an event registration form from this template, right? So we can just go over the fields that have been created here. We've got my name there. Which session do you plan to attend? Okay. Do you need a shuttle service at your place? Okay, that's not too many questions. And of course, we have a field for including an email. Okay, so if I choose something, so I'm just going to change this one specifically and put it as question number 2 over here. Actually, let me just delete that, and I'm going to insert a question. Can I use AI? All right, so here, Microsoft is trying its best to push this Copilot thing, right? So you notice in almost every business application Microsoft has, you now have the ability to use Copilot artificial intelligence. Right? So for this one, imagine I didn't have to fill all of this out. I could just add all these questions that are necessary and then to use those. But for me specifically, I want the email ones, right? And then there's even more signatures, additional comments, addresses, all of the likes. And then you just add that. So I'm just going to add that one over there. That. Okay, so that is done. Since it's auto saving, that is okay. So already now we have our registration form, right? So now we have our registration form. Of course, it's untitled. It's called event registration. That is okay. Full name is there. Email address is there. Maybe let me delete this one, make it super short so that it becomes very easy to fill out and I can show you the important stuff. Right, so include email address, I'll delete that. So name, and then we just have email address. Right, that is people. Right. So now that form is ready to collect data. Right, and now we can go into Excel now. We now need to set up our collection. Right, so already this is just a normal blank workbook that I used, right? And I'm going to name this attendance, right? Going to name it an attendance log, and then I'm going to, this is the important part, you need to make sure that when you're saving it, you're saving it into a OneDrive folder, right? This is a folder that is accessible on your computer, but also accessible on the cloud, right? So I like saving my things in data. So as you can see, this is the corporate OneDrive that I'm saving this into. But XLS, make sure that's fine. All right, so save. So now the naming has been done. Okay, so now what we now need to do is we now need to add our we now need to add some fields, right? We now need to add some columns, some cells where people are going to where the Power Automate is going to enter the data that it receives. So if we just refer back to our form over here, we have a few things, right? We've got name, email address, right? Those are the only two questions we have. Okay, so that's easy. But one thing we want to make sure that we collect is timestamp, right? So a lot of the time, I like to start off with timestamp. It's just better for auditing, right? If I want to check what time did this request come in, why did this automation process fail? I can just easily go over, just easily check my timestamp, right? And then in the second one, right, I'm going to input something like email address. So that is something. Enter. Actually, let me put in full name first. Slide change that. Okay, full name, and then email address. Okay, so simple. All right, so I'm just going to expand these, make sure these readable. Okay, so now we have the field that is going to receive our data. So now what we need to do is we need to turn this little table that we're going to use into, so we need to turn this into a table that we're going to use. So what we can do is we go to insert, right? We can say insert a table, right? And as you can see, we make sure that it's highlighting the fields that we want. So what you need to make sure also is that you highlight one below the top part, because we're going to use that top part as our headers. Right, so we always make sure that this is clicked as well, right? My table has headers, right? So that means it starts entering data from down here. That's fine. You can say okay. Then we need to change the table name, of course, so that we will be able to reference it easier. So we can call this attendance. Remember, you can't leave spaces when you're naming tables, right? That's stuff for errors for you. All right, so there we go. We've got our table. Our table is now nicely named, right? We are basically 60% done. Right? So now step 4 is just creating the automated flow. That's the juicy stuff. Okay, so we go in here. Okay, what we want is an automated flow, right? We want it to be triggered when someone enters when someone enters, when someone finishes and filling out a form. Right. So one of the ways you could do it is using templates. Right. But it's so I'm going to show that in a much more different in a different version. I'll show you how to use templates. But for now, I think let's make it manually. Right. So we need a flow name. What shall we call it? We can call it workshop. Right. To shop attendance. There we go. Then you see already we now have our triggers, right? So the triggers are what start the application. So of course you can skip and then add it later on, but you can also just add it over here. And here, what our trigger is essentially is we want it to start when a new response has been submitted into a Microsoft Forms, right? So we pick that one. Maybe you want it to start when an item has been created in SharePoint, right? You'd pick that one as well. Okay, so we go on to create. All right, and then we've got when a form is submitted. Now, this is the part now where you'd start adding more into your flows, right? So here, this plus sign will allow you to add another action, right? Your trigger is there. You then now add more actions, right? So you see you've got AI capability in there. You've got all these connectors that you can use. You've got your Adobes. It's endless. I mean, this list goes on and on and on. It's actually easier to just search rather than it is to go down and look for what you're looking for. Right? It's better to just type in and search what you want. But as you can see, there's a lot of connectors. So whichever application you could be using, if it's another third party, it's a good chance that you should check if there's connectors. So for some, it really doesn't have, but I've seen for a lot of applications that I try and automate, it does have those. Then of course, here's your save button, right? So one thing about Power Automate is if you do not click that button, it will not save. I've made those mistakes a few times, right? So try and not press this back or this back button without making sure that you click this and it is actually saved. So it should give you a green. If it does not give you a green and gives you a red, that just means that it hasn't saved. Don't be, that's a false sense of security right there. Then you've got your flow checker. Your flow checker is basically your debugging module. This is what checks and tells you where it can see errors in your flows, things, in your actions, in your triggers, or anything like that. Then here's your support. Then here is your co-pilot, right? So you can start to have chats with your co-pilot, telling it what your issues are, what you're trying to achieve, and it will go right ahead and try and help you. So I just had to admit someone there. Okay, so I'll show you a little bit more of Copilot a bit later on. If I run on, or if I run, I'm hoping I run into an error that I will use Copilot to show you how you can troubleshoot and fix it using AI. Okay, so all I did was click into here. Now, when the response is submitted, what it's asking for here, you see form ID, right? It's saying, look, we need a form ID. We need you to pick a form. What form should we be monitoring? Now, if I go back here and check, did I name it? Yes, I named it event registration. So I'm just going to click collect responses so that it gets saved. Let me just put in again respond, right? That's fine. And then let me now check here. Event registration, I do, right? So the moment I picked it, if I click save, right? Of course, it's not saying because it needs a trigger and an action, but that is fine, right? So if you check the flow checker, there is no more errors found there. Okay, so now we go to the next step, right? So we now, after we collected, after when the response has been right, our Power Automate program has fired up. We now need to add an action, right? What should we do? Well, what we need to do is to get responses. Right? We want to get the response details. What was filled out? And as you can see here, you see Microsoft Forms, that's the connector already, and you see get response, and then you can click this little eye just to see a little bit more about the connector you're about to choose. Right? So I choose that, Microsoft Forms, get response details. Then I need to choose the form ID again, right? Again, that is event registration. And then now I need to choose the response ID, right? So the response ID is the unique identifier of the response, right? Out of all these responses, which response should I be looking at? Essentially, is all it's trying to say. So you can insert what we call dynamic values or expressions, right? And with the dynamic value, you can begin to um, link the responses, the output that comes from other applications, output that is coming out, sorry, from a previous step into the next step, right? So we're saying, look at this event registration. I want you to grab the details, but I also want you to be mindful of the response ID of the details that you're grabbing, right? That way we're not being repetitive when we're collecting those responses. So there you go. I just chose that. Just to highlight what it did again, right? It's just pressing the little power sign passing by the top. This one will give you an expression where you can then write your expressions, concact, you've got replace, slice. You can even create an expression with Copilot, right? Tell it exactly what you want. And then you say create expression. Let me say, oh, let me see if it will create, right? You see, it gives me an expression. That means you need to use UTC now, right? So if you click that and you add it, see, what you need to see now. Okay, so another way to do it is also by pressing the slash symbol, and then it gives you the idea to pick what you want, dynamic, or is it going to be an expression? Okay, so now we've got our event form ID done. We also got our response ID done as well. Sorry. So now we're going to go. So we're going to save that to make sure it's saved. Let's just wait for it. And so is it saving? It's also looking through to see if it can find any errors that could cause it not to run. Okay, so far it means we're good. Okay, so now that we have gotten the response details, right? We now know the name of the person, we now know the email address. We now need to save those things into an Excel file, right? The Excel file that we just made. Right, so I'm just going to go in here, right? Make sure that is saved by spamming Control S a couple of times, right? That is saved. Then I'm going to add a new step, right? And then here I'm going to search for Excel. So that is what I'm looking for. I'm going to see more here. And what I want is I want to delete a row, get a row list, create tables, create a worksheet. No, what I would like to do is to add a row into a table, right? So after that, it gives you all these fields that you now need to, where you now need to locate exactly which Excel file you want it to be adding to, right? So it asks you for the location, right? What location should we be checking? If you're going to be using SharePoint, right? So these are all our SharePoint sites that we have as Adept Solutions, right? The accounting department SharePoint site, the administration SharePoint site, and all other SharePoint sites that we use for various other things. But we are more interested in OneDrive, right? Remember when we're saving things, I was saving it in OneDrive. So if you were to say you want to use SharePoint, right, then you would make sure that your Excel file, when you're saving it, you're saving it into a SharePoint site. Okay, so we just chose OneDrive for Business, right? And then it's asking us for the document library, right? And it's saying, oh, okay, that's easy. No, it's not personal cache. It's a OneDrive document library that we're looking for. This is where we now pick the file. So you just click that folder little thing over here. So you can either put a path over here, or you can just pick this little folder icon over here. I'm going to go into my folder called data, and this is the attendance log. So it's very, very easy. And then your table, right? It's picking up, it's already reading from that file. Okay, the tables I see here are A, B, C, and D. And then we pick the table that we want. Now, what you need to make sure, right now we could save it, right? And this would be done, right? If we click it to run, it will absolutely run, no problems asked. But the problem is that because we haven't mapped out, the details that it receives yet, like the email address and the full name, to an actual column in the Excel sheet itself, it will just be blank. It will just be blank, right? It won't enter anything because it doesn't know where it can't find the column that is matching where it needs to be placing that data. Okay, so what you can do is you go down here, just make sure your date and format however you want it. It could be an ISO 8601 or it's a serial number. ISO is an international standards organization. Maybe you are dictated by ISO to follow a certain way of saving your date and time formats. Or so then here, as you can see, these are all the columns. Sorry about that. These are all the columns that we specified, right? You see timestamp that we wrote out, full name that we wrote out, and email address, right? So it's picking from that Excel sheet. So we're going to add dynamic content, right? And we're going to map exactly what we want to be entered into that column. So here, timestamp, right? We want the submission time. Full name, here we want the name of the responder, right? Did I pick that correctly? Yeah. Let me just double check with the form and registration. Yeah, okay. So it's called your name. I usually use full name. That's okay. Right. So right here we're picking up your name. Then email address. Right. Again, it's a dynamic. Pick up the email address that we wanted to pick from. Right. At that point, you can click save. Right. And now we'll take you through the testing methods. Right. So there are a couple of ways you can test it. The first way to test it is triggering it manually, right? And that is every time you make a new flow, you have to first test it by triggering it manually, right? And then you can also do an automated test, right? These automated tests usually run after you've done a first trigger. Then all it will essentially do is just repeat the same trigger that you did in the previous version when you did it manually. Right? So we're just going to pick manually, and then we're going to hit test right over. Yeah. Okay, so as you can see, it's loading, right? So it's waiting for someone to send in a response. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this URL as if I'm actually going to fill it myself. Right, I'm going to enter that. I'm just going to quickly fill this out. Say to I. W. So we're just going to hit submit. Right, that's done. So as you can see over here, right, it was loading, but now it even tells you the times that it spent at each process, right? Here it spent 0 seconds. So you can use this information to know overly how long your automated workflows are taking. So if you're working in a much complex enterprise environment, maybe dealing with multiple subsidiaries, you'd want to know, are there any bottlenecks? You can also use Event Miner, but that's out of the scope for this lesson. But you can use this to make sure that your flow is optimized and is taking it's not using up a lot of bandwidth. Okay, so as you can see, right, that ran successfully. Right? And if I am to pull out my emails, yeah, oh sorry, it shouldn't save in the email. It's showing. If I am to pull up my Excel sheet, right, you can see right over there, right? It's filled it out. I didn't enter it, right? It's even filled out with the timestamp and everything, right? Very, very, very easy things. So you can imagine you got, instead of using maybe the one that is within this, right? Because within this, for you to be able to share it with people, or you can view responses, right? So you can obviously you can absolutely generate and open these results in an Excel book. But what Microsoft says is that the person who created that form is usually the only one who can receive it, who can view the results, right? Of course, you can then give collaboration, but if we want to have proper separation of duties, right? We don't want everyone to just be moving in around and having the ability to edit this if they can only want to see the results, right? So maybe the marketing team just wants to see the results, but us as the tech team who are going to be writing out this form and making sure that there's security controls, we don't want them to be messing around and just editing around in it. That's where you would use this, right? Because it's an external worksheet. You can now just share it with the user. You can now just share it with the people that you want to have access to that data. Okay, so that is the first part. We have been able to test it out. Now, I think I still have a bit of time. Right now it is 2:52. We started at 2 o'clock. So unfortunately I'm going to move to the next one. But in terms of enhancements, things that you can do is you can use Power BI to then visualize attendance over time, which I'm sure Sharon is going to go over with you tomorrow, right? You can add a confirmation email to your flow, right? So you can then go into your flow right over here. Let me just quickly show you what it would look like. So, okay, fine. We're receiving these responses into our Excel sheet, right? But we want to then email the people the email addresses of these people that have registered, right? So all we can do is just add a little step over here, right? Then we search for Outlook because that is what we are after. Right? And then we can look for send an email v2. Version 2 is the latest. And then finally, you're just configuring the email, right? To who? Who is it going to be? Well, you want it to pick automatically, right? To look through the data and say, okay, what's the email address for this person who's just signed up, right? So we can click there and then we can put in email address. Right? So to pick from the Excel sheet, you to pick the email address. Or you can say, look, I want you to pick the email address from the SharePoint sheet, whichever one works for you. It's just about the same thing. And then you can write your subject over here. And then this will be your body of your email, right? So you can even put in dynamic expressions that will look for the name of the user, right? Instead of just sending a generic hi message, right? You can say hi, then full name, right? So they need to write in the full name itself. Maybe let me quickly, I think just about enough time to quickly. Let's see. And then in the advanced parameters, this is where you put in things like from, send as, right? Maybe you want it to be sent as on behalf of a certain mailbox, on behalf of another mailbox, right? Maybe you don't want it to come in straight from your email. Maybe you want it to be coming from a team workbox or an assistance team workbox or a workshop team work or the marketing team, whatever it may be. Then CC, of course, you know what CC does, right? And then your sensitivity, you can put in your sensitivity there. You can log in your importance right in here as well. If you have any attachments that you want to attach to it, you can put them in there as well. Then email addresses to use when replying to, right? So it just doesn't default to the normal, to the email address that's sent. If you want something different, you can put that in there as well. Okay, so I'm just going to quickly see if, okay, so subject is required. Just test, right? Let me see if I can quickly dirtily send this, make this workflow. So I'm going to click test. All right, now it's a good time to show the automated test. All right, so as you can see, when with the recently used trigger, right, that's the one that we used 5 minutes ago. And all it's just going to do is going to repeat, right? It's going to repeat the, it's just going to repeat the process. Okay, so there we go. It is completely finished. Then usually, because Excel takes a bit, because it's on my machine, not on the, it's on the cloud, but because it's sitting on my machine, it does take a little bit. But as you can see, that is already been filled out. Right, so the next part we had, which we need to check and make sure that it ran through, send an email, right? Okay, saying it sent an email. There we go quickly. As you can see, boom, it did send an email. And as you can see, it picked up the dynamic field that we asked it to. All right, so that is automating tasks, right? Very, very, very easy stuff. I promise you, if you take some time to play around with it, you will get the hang of it. It's a lot of trial and error, as everything is. But over time, the more terms that you pick up, the more stuff that you familiarize yourself with, then the more then the more value you get out of it. Okay, so to our next one. Well, this is a little known fact, is that Power Automate handles over, I mean, that is a crazy number, 500 million flows that are being run every month globally. And this is what they reported in 2023. I wonder what their number was in 24. Unfortunately, I didn't check that, but I can imagine it's probably a lot. Right. So in terms of what it can help, in terms of the use cases, right? If imagine you're having a lot of email overload, right? You can automatically save important attachments to OneDrive, or maybe tag emails based on keywords, right? If it's a sensitive email, you can tag it. If it's a low importance, you can tag it. If it's something that you need to flag and get right back to as soon as possible, you can have an automated flow that is sitting there organizing your emails for you, so that when you wake up the next morning or the next day you start your work, right, things are well organized and you can see what needs to be tackled first. So less inbox clutter and lost files. I don't know how many times we have to do this. I also deal with this situation. Someone sends me an email and then with an attachment to it, and then time passes by and then I absolutely forget that I received that email. Then I start looking back and it's a pain trying to find the attachment of that document or that email that they sent. Right? But if I was just saving those into OneDrive, it should be easy for me to do. Right? For getting tasks, I can send you a daily summary of your upcoming tasks or reminders from your calendar. right? So every morning when you get into work, right, maybe you can set it up according to location or according to time. When I walk into my workplace at 8:30, I want a daily summary of what I have to do today. Right? So it helps you stay on top of your priorities. I'm meeting chaos. And oh my word, after Teams meeting, it always happens. Someone has to be like, my notes, and no one has meeting notes, or meeting notes were not properly transcribed. You can use Power Automate for that, right? All it does is just grabs the transcripts and files it in a OneNote notebook so that you can look back at it further in the future. That is exactly what I'm doing for this meeting. I've got my transcription on, and it saves that transcription into like Microsoft Vivo Stream, I think it was its name, was yeah, Vivo Learning. Vivo is for learning. It's Microsoft Stream is where it saves it, and then after it automatically saves it, it throws it into AI, and then AI just summarizes it in a well-structured manner, puts it into my OneNote, and then from my OneNote, I can just share with the people that need that information. So it can elaborate on what you want discussed. So data entry as well, right? This is what we did, right? No need for manually copying and pasting data anymore, right? And also things like cross-app syncing, right? It can automatically add calendar events from Outlook to Google or calendar or vice versa, right? So no double booking, no missed appointments. You you'll be on top of everything. So look, automated data entry, why is it important? It saves you time, right? It saves hours every week on administrative work. Administrative work, I would say, is the biggest chewer and eater of time. So when you can automate these tasks, I know you get to work, you get your head down, you're doing work all the way throughout to 5, then time to go home and you're like, oh my word, where did the time go? I didn't cover this. I didn't cover A, B, C, and D, and so forth. It can also reduce, sorry about that. It can also reduce errors for manual tasks, right? If you are entering data manually, there's a high probability that you enter someone's email wrong. And if it's a potential customer that maybe had a big deal, they're like, oh no, look, just send me more information of this on email and send me the proposal on email. Then you mis-enter the word. That's lost revenue, isn't it? Right? It keeps you organized across devices and apps, right? And then it also lets you focus on learning, creating, and also solving problems, right? It pushes you to want to solve problems, to say, okay, I've got this repetitive task, instead of just sticking into it and saying, okay, that's it is what it is. And you can push yourself to say, okay, how can I solve this? How can I use Power Automate to make this task easier? And that way you understand more about the task. You become to your organization, truly. Okay, so our next one is keeping informed of changes. So one of the most powerful uses of Power Automate is helping you stay instantly informed about what matters the most. So whether it's changes in a SharePoint list, maybe updates to an Excel sheet, right? For our accountants, someone decides to add a new expense and we're using Microsoft Excel, right? It can notify us of that. Or maybe someone uploading a file to OneDrive, right? You imagine a scenario in SharePoint where our marketing team, right? We've got our junior marketer who's sitting all day creating all these advertisements that are meant to go on Facebook, right? The next step is that they need to be approved by the head of marketing, right? Then they need to be approved by the finance department to say, okay, yeah, we do have the budget to sponsor this post. What a junior marketer would do, instead of having to go to each one of these people's offices for them to sign off on a sheet of paper, they could just upload this onto SharePoint, right? They could just upload this onto OneDrive. Then automatically you get the manager or the head of that department or whoever is responsible for approving it gets a notification. A, B, C, and D has been uploaded. Would you like to approve it? Right, and then it's been approved, and then it goes to the accounting department. Hey, do we this thing wants to be advertised? Do you want to approve it? yes, I want to approve it, and then a notification is sent to the junior marketer, and that junior marketer can instantly, right, put that advertisement. So it allows you to move quick, right? How many times in organizations you assign a business task and then you forget about it because you're assuming that your subordinates are going to do it, right? But then you check in 3 days, 2 days later, Ajna, wait, when you're like, "Ah, okay, but why didn't you do it?" Right? This is a place where Power Automate can help you, right? Of course, they will have myriad of excuses. I couldn't get the signature. This person wasn't in my office on this day. It eliminates that, right? So whether it changes in a SharePoint list, updates to an Excel sheet, or someone uploading a file to OneDrive, Power Automate can watch these for you in real time and notify you of any changes. So we're going to dive straight in with this one, and let's just start creating something, right? Figuring things along the way. We do need some troubleshooting to be good. If I can make a mistake somewhere, so I can show you how to troubleshoot. Okay, so for the second one, we are going to create. Okay, so we're going to create a flow that sends a Teams notification when a file is added to OneDrive. So in terms of the prerequisites that we're going to need, just going to exit this one. It's fine, I don't need this anymore. So I'm just going to delete that. So in terms of the prerequisites you're going to need, you're going to need a Microsoft Teams account, right? So you can choose if you want the notification to go via Teams or via the email account or Outlook. It's all up to you, really. And then a Teams channel where you want to post the message. I already have that. Or you're very and then also a OneDrive, and then you also need a OneDrive triggered flow. Okay, so I'm going to show you a different way of doing this besides the conventional way. Another way you can approach this that is very easy is to say maybe you are not a fan of all of this. Right? Maybe you're not a fan of click add, right? You want quick, dirty, you want it easy, you want to just deploy it, and then forget about it. So I'm going to try to share to visiting. Okay, very weird. Right, so let me. Okay, right. So I'm going to go into a place like maybe management team because I know there's nothing in there. Right, so as you can see, we've got our management team SharePoint site here, and then we've got a section where we can upload documents and share maybe admin documents with each other. Maybe before meetings, we want to share the statement of financial positions beforehand of the meeting so people can go over it before we actually have the management meeting. What you could do is you could say, right in here, whilst you're in SharePoint, you could say, look, I would like uh, is it I would like to automate. Sorry, I would like to integrate, right? And then integrate, of course, you can choose Power BI. You've got your Power Apps. You've got your Power Automate. We are using Power Automate here, right? And then you can see flows that you have in your environment that you want it to link directly to, or you can configure flows maybe in your organ that you are already playing around with, and then maybe that's halfway finished and you're just doing this step, or you can create a flow right within this period itself. You see, then as you can see to my right side, there is all these templates you can use. Right, so that is a good place where you can use these templates, and you can even have access to way more. Right, so if you click see more templates, they go on and on and on and on, right? And Microsoft is trying its best to continuously adding these templates for people to make use of. Right, so You've got notify me and store the responses when a student completes a certain forms quiz, right? Form processing to an email and SharePoint. And I think that's one of the things we're doing, but it's sort of saving it in Excel, saving it onto a SharePoint. Save attachments is one we talked about. Record form responses in SharePoint itself. Post a message to Microsoft Teams for a selected item, right? And then you can also sort by top picks as well. Oh, sorry, I've got to filter here. So it's filtering for SharePoint. Right. So you can select by top picks as well. There you go. So follow up on a message, maybe schedule a reply that you want to do later, or maybe schedule a recurring message in a chat, right? Maybe you need to be constantly reminding your team that, look, tomorrow we need to be having our departmental meeting. Please make sure that you have A, B, C, and D. And it's something that you constantly say every Wednesday, right? You can instead automate it over here. And then you've got your shared with me, right? These are templates that have been shared with you. Then you've got ones for remote work, right? You've got ones for approvals, right? These are approval processes like leave applications, requisitions, and things like that. And then you've got your buttons. Your button one is more focused on things that happen on the mobile. Right. So if you are going to be using mobile to automate or start these automation processes, you would go into button. Then there is Visio as well, where you can do the graphs, workflows, and you're really like, doing it in terms of like drawing out diagrams, things like that. Then you've got ones for your data collection, right? You've got ones for your emails, you've got ones for your calendars, you've got even different ones for your mobile as well. And it just goes a little bit on notifications, productivity, social media, sync, the whole 9 yards, right? So for us, what we want is we want to, what are we trying to achieve here? We want to send a notification, email or Teams when a new role is added or edited in an Excel table stored in a OneDrive or SharePoint. Okay, so we're going to try and look for Excel over here. Let me go to my, sorry, and let me try and look, because we wanted to notify us when something happens in Excel. Actually, no, let me just do when we upload something here. I think that's easier. But you can also do it in Excel, right? If someone edits a certain role, a certain field, but since we've already done Excel, let's do OneDrive. So send an email after Microsoft processing file, no request, post a message to Microsoft Teams for a selected file, right? That's more like what we're looking for here. Right? Post a message to Microsoft Teams for a selected file, exactly. There's also one, yes, send an email after Microsoft syntax processes file. Yeah, we could also use that. We could also try that one quickly. Okay. So when you pick a template, it becomes very, very easy, right? It does all the adding of the triggers, the actions that follow, the for loops and things. All you now have to do is just configure yourself the remainder of the stuff. Let's just check. Okay, checking why it was taking so long. Okay, so we're going to, that's okay. So here it was just making sure that your connectors are valid, that you're actually logged in to an account. If you're not logged to SharePoint to have an X, that means you can't continue until you give it access to your account. Okay, so now we are in. And as you can see, I didn't have to do much at all, right? Everything is already in, right? Here it is manually collecting the information, or when we upload the information, the file, right? And then here we get your file properties, and then it will post a message in a Microsoft Teams chat. And you see some of the things are kind of already configured for us. It's just clicking, right? But I will say I do not want to use the SharePoint way, right? Because I want, say, I know, I think we can use the SharePoint. Yeah, no, that's fine. That's fine. Okay, so site address. Again, this is just the address of your site. So you can also check over here, Adept Solutions Adept Solutions zw.sharepoint.com, right? And you can just make sure that it's lining up exactly with what you are after. Yeah. So here I'm looking for the finance SharePoint, which is because that is the one I'm in. I'm not management. I'm actually in management team. Okay, management team. So double check. Yep. Okay, that is fine. And then the library name. So this is where the library where we're going to be uploading, where are the documents being sent, right? And there you go. And then message to the channel, right? This is the message that we're going to type in. So maybe we can input here and say um, this. Right? So that is fine. All right, and then we get our get file properties. And this is when it gets the properties of the file. All right, so here again, it's just clicking through, isn't it? Right, library name. We are looking at documents. All right, and then the ID field. So you can choose if you want it yourself, but this is just the same as this. All right, whatever it had before is just the same as that. It's just maybe the syntaxing that it used. It's fine. Just make sure that we don't have any other things to add in the advanced perimeters. Nothing. Okay. And then we check in here into our teams, right, where it's actually going to send the message. So you can choose what you want to be: a Power Virtual Agent, you want to be a Flow Bot. A Flow Bot is just a Power Automate bot. Do you want to be a Power Virtual Agent? These are new. I still haven't really explored them fully myself. I'm still learning a bit about them. Or do you want it to replicate a user, right? Maybe the user who uploaded that. We're just going to say Flowbot, and then you can choose, you want it to post it in a channel, into a group chat. So I forget what we have in our organization. I'm pretty sure for us it's a no, is it a group chat? Let me see if I can find it over here. Okay, so we have chat. Okay, which one could it be? Okay, so I'm going to change that. Maybe let's say channel. Ah, there we go. Okay, so I'm going to choose a channel instead. Technical services. Let's see if we can find the channel ID. That's just where it's coming in, where it's coming into. This is just the general chat. And then of course there's some messages that were being put in there. So these are here to put in the file properties and to replace the body and put in the file properties. And then it'll also paste a link that a person can then click to just quickly go and reference and access that file. Right. And then here you've got your name properties. It won't let us see, but this is the name of the file itself. And then here is the message body, right? That is the text that we typed in the beginning here. Okay, so that looks okay. We can click save. Okay, so now that it's saved, we can run a test. Now we can test it through here. What we can do is we can upload that document. See if I have any random. Say to me. Oh, sorry. So I made a mistake. So you need no, because you can't check the test to check if it's running. So we added a file, didn't do anything. Let's try that again. Or what you can do is you can click that, right, and then you can go to automate flows, right, and then you see our flow is already there. That's just to sort of nudge it because maybe the cloud sometimes it can be taking time, syncing and things like that. But you can force it to trigger. So the flows, there you go. We can post a message, pick the right flow that we want. If it's to request for approval, we would pick request for approval as well. Okay, it's just checking that I'm signed in and have the right permission. Okay, so now that it's confirmed, we can click go. And then, of course, we need maybe a message. I have loaded statement. Whatever. And then we run the flow. And then here we can audit it, see if it actually ran. Right, there we go. So we see that it actually ran. So you can click and see the run history. And then it tells us, yep, right, this worked out fine. This worked out fine. And this turns out it worked out fine. Okay, so now we need to check Microsoft Teams itself in our group chats and see if we actually did receive the message. All right, so as you can see, sorry, no, this is a previous. Let me see if I don't chat. General chat, I think there's something there. Should show. Yeah. Get it to show. And now we get into troubleshooting. I'm gonna find out this is going into the right channel. It's going into technical and training services. Yep, it's going into the general chat. Yep. Oh, perfect. Get anything. Oh. Interesting. Let me change the channel that it's set into. Right? Let me change the channel. Maybe let's try chat with flow. But all that will do is it will just send one that looks like, which one was I? Okay. It will send one that looks like this, sorry. It will send one that looks like this. That I already know that one. Let me see. Could you post access file? Maybe let's try group chat. Right? And then maybe let's try sending it into our group chat. Let's see if it will work. CD. What's the name of it? Data. It's an F. Found it. All right. Send. Okay, that's fine. That's fine. Save this first. Okay. See what. Yeah. The body recipient dot body recipient group ID. Maybe we can just put this title ID. Okay. That would break it. Okay, so for some reason, let me see if I can get it. Team, get file properties. Oh, I see. Maybe we can say title. Yeah, maybe we can say title. Or another way we could solve this, I'm not exactly sure what it entered for that field. So we can just go back to the flow. Should be integrate here. Already integrated. Okay, so I can go back to one of these templates and see if I can get access. Let's see. So we can put in Teams. Sorry. Sorry. What? Let's click on this one. Didn't change anything. Okay, that was weird. And now suddenly we're side at all. Okay, let's test that automatically since we've already run one before. Let's see if our channel, our group channel gets message. Okay, so that seems it ran. Let's not go in here. Weird. I would have to see. Maybe it's because of the fact that I'm in the Teams meeting, but I wouldn't say so. That it's not actually sending, but I am sure it is sending. Okay, because of time, let me just go to the next thing. You can also change things here, right? So here you can, let's say if you instead want to use something that we know is already working, right? Maybe this is being an issue. You can just delete that and instead just add Outlook. Because at the end of the day, we want to make sure that we are getting a certain message to our users. So we can just use Outlook and then we can say send an email or whatever it is.
Hello,
Okay, so
Tendai.
my
Sorry
time has moved.
to interfere. Sorry to interfere. There was a message from your workflow on the chat which popped up. So I think it has worked.
Oh, it did. Okay. Oh,
Yes.
interesting. I don't know why it's taking so long. We just played it on Wi-Fi today, right? Okay, so sorry. That took way longer than it needed to be. We can go on to the next one. I know my time is very limited. Okay, and then so what this can help you is you no longer need to keep checking the flow, right? To automatically send you a Teams message, right? To send you an email or even a mobile notification whenever something is updated. Right? So if, for example, you can get notified when someone edits a document, right? You can track updates to a specific project, to a specific task that you have if you use Microsoft Planner. You can even alert your team, right, when a form is submitted, right, and let them know, hey, this form was submitted. This client wants assistance in A, B, C, and D. Can you assist them? Right. So this means every time you're always in the loop, right, without the manual work, and is giving you more time to focus on decision making instead of chasing up on updates. Right. You don't have to go to the accounting departments to find out what happened to approving that request, right? What happened to approving that social media advertisement that we wanted sponsored, right? You can now just get a notification, and you know that that work has been done. If you don't get a notification, then you know that work hasn't been done. Then at that point, it's up to you to choose what the next necessary actions are. Right? So Power Automate helps you react to what matters when it happens. Okay, so then the last one was getting approvals. All right, so I'm not going to have quite a lot of time because I do want to finish at 3:30 sharp, just so I can give you guys just a section just to go over some questions that you may have. So with getting approvals, you can request for approvals for new SharePoint list items, a library, or even files. Right, so instantly jump into this one. And this time, I think I'm going to show you. I'm going to show you a little bit of using the artificial intelligence side of this. So here I can just describe what I want. Right? Just describe the process that I wanted to achieve. Get approvals for items that SharePoint. Right? We generate that, and then it gives us what? It gives us a flow, right? A flow template that we can work with. Right. So then you can see you've got two versions that you can choose from. Right. You can choose one when the response is created, you start and wait for an approval process. Then it makes sure that each condition is being matched before it actually sends out an email or sends out two emails to the person who sent the approval, or an email to the person who's responsible for the auditing part. Right? And then you can do it as well in a different way. And then you can also even use a little trick that you can use is using ChatGPT. Right? And with ChatGPT, all it is about giving it the context of what you're trying to do. Right? With make sure that you're giving it enough context, it'll give you a really good answer, which can give you step by steps that you can follow to achieve the exact same result. Right? So I want to create, to make it a bit more complex. To counting finally choose chat to approve. So this is the important part now. Give a context, right? I am a beginner. Right? We want detailed step-by-step instructions. So I'm a beginner. Give me detailed step-by-step instructions. A lot of spelling mistakes, but give me a lot of detailed step-by-step instructions. Explain it to me. It's my first time. Sorry about that. And then AI, of course, doing its thing, give you the step-by-step instructions, right? Making sure that it understands your question, right? And then it gives you the step one of what you need to be doing, right? You need to create a SharePoint list, the title, request name, the department, right? And then you go in step two, you're creating the flow itself, right? And then in step three, you're configuring the trigger, all right? And then in step four, you're getting the requesters manager, right? Because we said we want it to send that request for approval to the head of the department. So what it needs to do, it needs to get that whoever submitted that request, it needs to get their manager. Then once it gets their manager, it starts an approval process. Right, and then after that, it sends it to the accounting department. So this is then setting that up. Then, of course, finally the operations in the HR. Then step 8, final notification, right? And then it even gives you bonus stuff, right, that you can add in, and then it gives you a summary visual, which makes it simplified. Lots and lots, right? So very easy. It's literally just following this step by step, and you'll be able to achieve it. Another way I'm going to show you where you can also do this is just going into SharePoint itself. For example, that I've been playing around with. Site here is the finance one. Just to show you something. Playing on this one. Right. And then you can just click that. And it's just the same thing. Right. You can click automate, flow, and then request sign off. right? And that all that it does is more of the manual version, not exactly fully automated, right? Because you have to, after a person has uploaded their requisition, they have to request the sign off, right? And then you type in who the approver is, the message, and then you run the flow. They need to send it, and then it will let you know, and that has been approved, right? But that is just the easy method, right? If you're in a one, maybe an this really small organization that doesn't require a lot for it. Okay, so I'm going to try and see if I can get to show you this. Um, integrator still here available for me here. Okay, so here you can create another flow, right? It's just the same method, and you can choose request approval in Microsoft Teams when a SharePoint item, or request manager approval for a selected item. We're going to click on that option. And then should click. Okay, so it's just signing in, making sure everything is okay. Then you click that, you're ready to go. So one thing I want to highlight in this one is the fact that, okay, let's go in and edit it and you can see what I'm talking about. So with this one of the issues that it has is that it's because Microsoft has switched to a new designer, and this was made using the old designer. Instead of them, remember when we talked about their 500 million Microsoft flows running every day, monthly, right? So they decided, okay, now that we've moved to a new designer, we don't necessarily want to leave everyone who decided to create using the old flow in the dock, right? And then suddenly their thing doesn't work anymore. So with this one, there is a little bit of editing that you need to do. Essentially, the first thing that you need to do is you need to delete this, that condition. Yeah, right, you've got starting approval. Fine. Oh, sorry. Well, not necessarily delete, but before it, you need to add something here. You need to add an action, and that action will be your get SharePoint. To get SharePoint. No, it's get file metadata. So get file metadata. Okay, so those are the kind of things that you need to do. Then, of course, you link in your file over here. I think we were in finance, identifier. It doesn't matter for now. I'm just going to leave that blank. Okay, then another thing that you need to edit is you need to go into your condition. So just switch over here. And then within your condition, this inform request of approval, this doesn't exist anymore, right? That's why you saw when this is essentially sending an email. That's why we saw the two version 2 if you saw it, right? So you need to replace that with version 2, right? So you add an action and then send it. And then you make sure you pick version 2. Right? So the same goes about for the other side. And those are the two things that I think you need to be very mindful of. Otherwise, it might not work out. And then, of course, you can change to Microsoft Teams if that's how you want it to operate. That is also available to you as well. Okay, so that is getting an approval. Let's see what else I have for you here today. Okay, actually just closed. Right. Okay. So Power Automate, right? It's acting as your digital assistant, right? It's handling your reminders, it's saving your email attachments, it's organizing your files, right? It's tracking your deadlines and it's syncing your data, right? So you can focus on what matters. So maybe auto saving email attachments, getting daily reports, turn team meetings into transcripts, turn team meeting transcripts, sorry, into organized notes, syncing calendar events across accounts automatically, logging receipts or class notes into an Excel with one click. Those are things that you can all do very, very easily, right? And in terms of the efficiency impact, right, approvals via Power Automate actually save teams 30 times the time per request compared to a manual email workflow. Right, that is a lot, right? If you think of it in a business sense, 30% save time on our approvals could mean a lot and could mean the difference between us potentially catching a client and not. All right. So unfortunately, we have reached the end of our session. I'm going to let Musa come in with the Q&A questions if there are any that we can address.